I'm sympathetic with those former soldiers who have experienced the worst and are struggling to get back on an even keel. At the same time, there's an urge at some point to say to oneself and others, okay, it's been a bad trip. Just deal with it.
Okay, great. Welcome back to the Roman Anton Podcast. Today we have again, as promised, Tom Crowley. Tom, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad you reached out to let me know you were coming to town. I thought perhaps when we last interviewed and you said we'd keep in touch, that was aspirational, but you've done it, so I appreciate it. And not only that, but you were kind enough to bring me along back to the Mercy Center, of which you wrote about and which you discussed in our first podcast. And so thanks for that. That was a fun morning there. It's always good. And I got some quality time with Father Joe to talk about stuff. So that was fun for me today. So mission accomplished for me today on that part. Thank you.
Mercy is always good. The kids are special and they infect you in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a beautiful weather too. So it was nice sitting in there. Just all around a good stop. So I'm looking down. Podcast 23 was your last time. Today, I want to make sure everyone looks at Tom Crowley Books, Crowley, TomCrowleyBooks.com, and is able to pull this up because it's really a nice website, and I didn't show it last time, but I'm going to turn this around, and Frank and I'll blow this up, but you can see a copy of Tom's book, Mercy's Heroes, last book out. Before that, Bangkok Gamble, which is part of the Matt Chance series. And so I'm going to go through his website, and Frank will cut this in when we talk about these books, just so we can see it and so you can see the book covers in case you want to order them. But I think it helps to get a little visual proof like this that you're on the right track with Tom and his name. So I'm going to push this over. But welcome back. You told me in your email that you are writing another Matt Chance thriller with an operating name. Can I mention the operating name of the book?
Opium Dreams.
Right, Opium Dreams. So I was excited because I thought for sure, you said to me last time when we were out, not on the podcast, that you weren't sure if you'd continue rigorously writing. And I knew you had projects in your head, but I wasn't sure what was going to be next. And so when you said it was another Matt Chance book, I was excited.
So was I.
Yeah. And I think you had the idea when we last podcasted together of a story similar to the Opium Den story, which is about international drug ring and its penetrating the Thai market.
Yes.
And I won't go beyond that unless you want to go beyond that. But you sort of had the idea, I thought, and then you clearly do. So you're going to be going after that. Since you were last here, renewed energy, refound interest?
Both, a bit of both. I work for the Mercy Center as a volunteer for the Mercy Center Foundation in the U.S., which raises money both for the Mercy Center and other street kid organizations in Thailand. That's our license from the U.S. government. Right. And that turned out to be, I was asked to do it after I left here, actually a few months after we were last together. And I accepted, but it's turned out to be a real job. And it takes a lot of work, and somebody has to do it. And the issue really is that as I wrote the book, 14 Years at Mercy, I'm considered to be the one that knows something about mercy. So I've gotten wrapped up in that. And also I was looking for what you just mentioned, which is if you want to have a good book, you have to have evil to write about. Because you oppose evil. And it's Moby Dick, you know, it's the great white whale. You have to be, and actually I have quotes from some well-known writers that say the same thing. So you want to have that theme about what is your protagonist opposing? And the more evil you can make that theme, the greater your protagonist can be. So I was really searching for that. And I'll leave it at that unless you want me to go down that trail about...
No, well, it ties in. Well, that's good. I mean, a couple of things. I didn't realize the Mercy Center role had expanded. I mean, you're a quiet man, I guess I might say. You're not going to lead with your most recent successes, and so it will come up organically, which I think it just did. But so you've increased your role for the Mercy Center U.S. is a new piece of information for me. So good on you for that. And obviously, it makes a little more sense what this trip was about as well. So I get it. So duh. Okay.
Oh, it's okay.
All right. So you're helping it stay vibrant. Right?
Hopefully, yeah. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
The kids are beautiful, and if you get frustrated sometimes, you just remember the kids.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, so that's fun. So, and it's a lot of it's more than casual time. So you're spending a lot of time in the outreach department.
I'm going to be asking. I'm the chairman of the foundation. I'm going to be asking for a lesser role. I'll step back to the board. Actually, I'm announcing this now, and the board will find out after I get back home. But I want more time for writing, and I'll still be a good soldier and do the work that they ask me to do. But I want to write. I want to finish this next book and make it the best book ever.
Yeah, I guess just to sort of round that off, is the United States, is that a primary source of funding outside of Thailand for Mercy Center?
Yeah, there are foundations in Australia, the UK, Spain, but they're all very small contributors compared to the U.S. because that's from where Father Joe came.
Right.
And he's well known. He's gone back to different universities and churches and preached, though he doesn't do that anymore. And so there's a built-in base.
Yeah, and I'm not saying yay USA, which I would say in the right occasion, but that's the nature of the sort of the structure and the people involved, and you and him, and there's a lot of Wisconsin involved, but also a lot of...
God bless Wisconsin.
There we go. Well, good. Well, interesting. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. I'm learning.
I'm back to writing. It's going to be a good book. If you want, I'll give you the evil that we're combating, and it's caught my eye the last year. It's fentanyl.
Yeah.
And it's now considered a major issue between the U.S. and China. And there were 100,000 deaths last year, and that was up over 30%, I believe, from the year before. And they're projecting it's going to be, again, a big boost this year. Because it's a drug that you don't recognize when you take it, and it's 50 times more deadly than heroin. And these are mostly kids dying, people who are new to drugs.
Right. I mean, so I assume 100,000, this is idiotic what I'm saying, but I assume 100,000 is a lot compared to overdoses generally in America from drugs.
Yeah.
And that means lives taken. That's not just overdoses. So if there's 100,000, I assume it's an exponential number bigger of people who OD and recover.
Yes, could be.
Not a great experience. Right? Just sort of, so, I think it's, if we attribute pop culture that there is enough of a sentiment and awareness around this that it's epidemic levels, or at least appears that way, right?
It's caught the top levels of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
And it's become an issue between the U.S. and China because most of the fentanyl coming into the U.S. comes from China.
Yeah. So you're also here this week to do some creative writing or some writing courses for local schools. We don't name them. If you want to, you can name them later if that's of interest to you. But it's interesting how many things sort of as we sit and talk, you connect for me or put in better context, because I'm a Tom Crowley fan. So I'm going to do something here early in the podcast. Mercy's Heroes, one of Tom's book. We're going to show the photos. The Bangkok Gamble I already mentioned. a Matt Chance thriller. Viper's Tale, a Matt Chance thriller. So who's Matt Chance? Matt Chance is his Jason Bourne or his Keanu Reeves or whoever his Matrix character that he has now moved into the fourth book for. Shrapnel Wounds, an infantry lieutenant's Vietnam War memoir. So this was a personal memoir that you wrote relatively recently. Murder in the Slaughterhouse was the fourth or the first of the Matt Chance thrillers. Stillwell's Long Retreat, Burma, 1942. Okay, so that's a historical piece. Bangkok Pool Blues, which you gave me at our last meeting, and of which I've now had a chance to read, and which I was delighted to read. So I've just read, and including Opium Dreams, your upcoming book. You know, you got eight books. That's significant output in any context, but we don't measure things by volume. We measure them by quality, but you've also been recognized. So a nice body of work and something that if someone wants to dig in, can dig in. And so you're now coming here to spread the wealth a little bit and teach. And so that's cool.
Yeah, I was asked, as I say, the way people find your books is, I don't know how. Internet, maybe they're going through different book review sites or whatever, but I had a lady, a librarian at a school here in Bangkok, and she sent me an email. This is about the time I was coming for a year and a half ago, my last talk with you. And it basically, you know, she said, I love your book, which, you know, any writer is going to, okay, got that one. So I was happy with it. And then she told me she wanted to, that there was an award that the librarians of the international schools give out here in Thailand. And she asked if I would give her permission to submit it.
So I thought I remembered the name of that award, Siam
Book Award.
Siam Book Award, SBS Siam Book Award. So you were nominated for that?
Yeah, I'm nominated. It's still in the process. The short list came out a few months back, and I'm 5 books. I'm on the short list, and then the decision will be made in March, April timeframe. But she asked me as we followed up, I told her I was coming back to Thailand for a visit to Mercy and some other things. She asked if I would come down and lead a couple of writing workshops at her schools.
That's tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow morning, 2-hour sessions at Shrewsbury International School.
Nice. That's cool. How, right? Like how'd that, but it's interesting because of your books, are you happy that it was Mercy's Heroes?
Oh yeah, Mercy's Heroes is a work of love. You've seen the people there.
Yeah.
I call them slum mums, and then I went back and I asked the lady who's in charge, is it okay? I called them slum mums in the book. Would they be offended? And she said, no, Kuntam. They'd be proud. They are from the slums. Yeah. They are moms, and they love the kids. And there's nobody better to take care of these kids who've been abandoned than a mom from the slums. And it's so impressive. And not getting away from Father Joe and Sister Maria, the two who started the organization.
Right.
But I think the working staff deserves recognition because they, as you've seen today, they make it go on a day-to-day basis. They're beautiful people, and they're not recognized in Thailand. Yeah. They're not HISO in any way.
Well, right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so the nature of charity, right? It's day in and day out slog with not a lot of recognition generally, but maybe the nature of religion as well. I don't know. But it's an interesting intersection there for sure, right? And today we saw music lessons, and it was a very pleasant day, and so that was fun. It was traditional Thai music and dance, and so that was cool. Great. So now we know what this visit's about. You've got a couple of purposes here. One is to inform the board that you're going to step back a little bit. So hopefully you beat us with that announcement. That's a scoop. Yeah. Then the second is some teaching, but also to come back and visit a place that you dedicated many years of your life to. So let's talk a little bit. Vietnam veteran, served, wrote about it. I don't know how I missed in all of this Stillwell's Long Retreat, Burma, 1942. American General Joseph Vinegar Joe Stillwell.
Yeah.
China, Burma, India Theater. British General Alexander, China, Chiang Kai-shek, USA, as I said, Vinegar Joe. War with Japan, that's the context. When did you learn about the subject, and then when did you want to write about it?
I started reading, librarians are wonderful people.
Yeah, we're going to tie it all together, right?
It is true. I was fortunate enough, and maybe in Racine you did also, you had a library on the corner of the block where you lived. And when I was in 5th grade, maybe my mom wanted to push me out the door, but she sent me down to the library. And I went down. It was a wonderful place. The books are free, and they'll let you take them home. And at that time, it was interesting. I gravitated, with the help of the librarian, to certain American historical novels. The Last of the Mohegans by James Fenimore Cooper. I did Moby Dick. I did the Huckleberry
Sure.
Twin,
Mark
whatever
Twain.
it is, Mark Twain stuff. But I gravitated almost immediately at the time I was in 6th or 7th grade. And I mentioned this the last time we talked.
Baggy Pants.
The
right?
Devils in Baggy Pants by Ross Carter.
Right, Ross
And
Carter.
I fixed on that. I think it was maybe 7th grade. And I fixed on that.
Yeah.
And he was a hero. He was 101st Airborne in World War II. And he fought all the way through until he was badly wounded towards the end. And I was just taken with the idea of this tremendous courage of this guy, because they didn't fight one fight and go home.
Yeah.
They went back and they went back and they went back. And so it grabbed my imagination. Then I read Audie Murphy's To Hell and Back. And I was taken with that. And as I came along, I started reading more military history and loving it. I thought I would be a history teacher. When I was in high school, I thought I would, go through college and be at some small state school in Wisconsin, La Crosse maybe, UW La Crosse, and be teaching history and helping to assistant coach to the football team. That didn't happen, but I still was interested in military history. And so when I started writing, after Bangkok Pool Blues, it was my assumption I would write military history.
What year are we talking about now?
About 2008.
Right, so
Yeah.
relatively recently.
Yeah.
But did you carry Stillwell in your head the whole time from some baggy
He
pants?
he was one of the fellows I read about when I was a teenager, late teenager. I read Civil War books. I read everything about combat. World War I, General Blackjack Pershing, the American general who led our forces in France.
You talked about that in the last podcast, and you getting yelled at for bringing that name up, Blackjack.
My teacher.
So, and again, I commented then, as I will now, there's age appropriateness. And if you look at how people describe in academia the trajectory of when you read what you read cartoons and comic books early, and maybe that continues as something in your adulthood. But by any stretch of anyone's imagination, significant historical treatises, nonfiction recounts usually don't land in the hands of grade school kids or high school kids. It's usually through movie treatment where they will like that, or, Deer Hunter or things for Vietnam, but not the epics, in particular, not about intermediate players in a regional conflict that was part of a larger worldwide conflict?
The library. I always come back to the library, and the librarian sort of challenged me because I came back. I don't know which book it was. It might have been Moby Dick. I bought it back, and it's about that thick,
Right.
And she said, "Isn't this a bit big for you?"
Yeah.
And of course, I took it the same way you would have. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have it back to you in 2 days.
Right,
Let me go get this. And so that attitude at that age was my part. I was, I don't know what, 12 years old. And I just fell in love with the librarian. And
You remember her name or his name?
no, I don't. It was a nice lady.
And what
But-
city are we in now?
West Dallas, Wisconsin.
Okay, so West Dallas Public Library, 1950s.
Oh, yeah, definitely
Okay.
1950s, maybe 56 or 57 or something like that.
So if you remember this kid, give him write to him through his website. You inspired him.
Yeah, but
She could have only been 19 years old for all you know. That
yeah,
was,
I
right?
mean, she may still be dating. Who knows?
So
I just
what
got
was
up
the
in that-
war book? What do you remember what it was? Do you remember what the kickoff was? What you picked out?
It might have been Devils in Baggy Pants.
So that's a person though, right?
Ross Carter, yeah,
Right.
his story, and it just grabbed me. I'll have to say this, kids want to be macho. And, at that time I was trying to be a football player at the lowest levels.
Right.
And, I thought I was a tough guy, and I admired tough guys. I found out later I wasn't so tough. But at that age, you don't know. You can't fill in the blanks. And I just went with that. But I read everything I could. But as it went along, after I finished Bangkok Pool Blues, I thought, what am I going to write? And I thought military history. And what I started writing was Viper's Tale, but I started it as a military history book. And it was on the Kempeitai, the Japanese Kempeitai, and the concentration camps.
That's right.
And that they had in World War II. And I started writing it, and I was getting into it, and I said, you know what? I'm not bringing this alive. I'm not, and maybe it's because I don't have enough background or whatever. I've got to bring this alive. And then I said, okay, let's make it fiction and build it that way.
That's funny. I don't recall us going over that detail last time. And if I missed it, it's my fault. But I remember thinking that I was like, this is interesting how you're introducing this in the context of a fiction work on Matt Chance, this whole history of Japan. Because wasn't there a love story piece to it too? Wasn't there a husband-wife piece to the Kempeitai? Or am I making that up?
I'm trying to think, and you may be right, but I can't come up with it.
Right, the way you introduced it into the sequence was even sort of cool. I was like, this is interesting. What is he doing here? How's he going to pull this off?
Yeah, well, Viper's Tale started with a historical bit about Matt Chance's grandfather parachuting into northern Thailand.
That's it.
In World War II.
Yeah.
And he was with the OSS, and they were trying to come in at the end of the war, parachuting in and trying to organize hill tribes and other groups to fight against the Japanese. So that was his grandfather. And in the book, I made a piece of creative work and had them rescuing one of these Kempeitai concentration camps.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm wrong. I think there wasn't a love story angle to that. But yeah, but I get your point. You infused that historical event with a little Matt Chanceism, and so we get to call it fiction. But you told us about something that was clearly non-fictional.
Yeah, but then I just went with the flow. It was much easier to bring it to life. Matt did meet the lady that he would come to be romantically involved with in the first book, and I tried to. I don't want to go all the way on my first date,
right?
But I thought I'd have him meet the girl, get involved, and then in the second book further, in the third book further, and now they're pretty much together.
Right. And the same way you have Jade as a character through which you can talk about military training and things, and to same way you have a new character in the upcoming book that can give a Hong Kong slant to training and practices and things. So interesting to see that. So so now historian or novelist, well, let's be both, but Stillwell. So when did that come to your attention, and how do you get hooked on something that is such a small piece and not one that's traditionally discussed when talking about World War II antics?
Okay. The Stillwell thing was, maybe many writers have this experience, an accident in a sense. The publisher who had done Shrapnel Wounds.
Your autobiographical account.
Yes.
Okay.
Eric Hamill. And he did a good job on Shrapnel Wounds. It sold well, and he liked me. And he came back and said, you know what I'd like to do? Of course, he was looking to make a quick buck. He says, ebooks really sell. Could you get me, 20,000 words on whatever character you want out of Asia, your interest there? And so I said I could write you something on General Stillwell, because I read military history for World War II, and I'd picked him out as somebody. I really tended more towards Asia-Pacific World War II than European, but I did both extensively. I've been hooked on it ever since I was a kid. I think it's trying to grow up. It's trying to be a man, and I thought that was my avenue.
So when do you think you read that Stillwell stuff first? When you were...
Oh, God. I could have been in the 90s or 80s, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
I mean, way back when. I went through phases. One phase was Civil War, so many books, and then World War II, so many books, and then...
Was all of this hard copy lugged around in a backpack?
Oh, yeah.
None of this was fluency because of digital, and you could just flip around and start connecting all these dots that I'm sure in your head. You had to get a hard copy. You had to wait for it. You'd go find it in some library. If it wasn't where you were at, you'd have to track it down.
I spend a lot of money on books.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I can imagine, especially as you start to get partially down the wormhole, or whatever we call the Alice in Wonderland things, is you need to get answers, right?
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to tell the kids in the workshop is it's all about research. And when he asked me about Stillwell, I thought, okay, I know the rough story, but that's not good enough.
What is the rough story?
Oh, the rough story is that the British wanted the Americans to get involved in the Pacific in World War II, in the areas where the British were fighting, which was Burma. And at the conference, I believe it was 1943, August 43, and in Canada, it was raised by Churchill with Roosevelt. Yeah. We need you guys to be involved. And then Churchill had a unit that he loved, which was an irregular force that had been fighting in Burma in 43, and he said, you guys got to get involved. And so then it was thrown to Stillwell. America was looking for a general to go and head up that force. Stillwell didn't want to do it. He wanted to be in the invasion of North Africa. He wanted to be the head guy. And so there was a lot of tussling back and forth, but Roosevelt twisted his arm, and he went out in summer or fall of 1943. This is all history books. This is all what I was reading. And so he was the American commander of the Consolidated Forces, Chinese and American, in Burma, starting in late fall of 1943. And there was a British commander also, and they supposedly, the British commander was in charge, but it was very hard to be in charge of Stillwell.
So that was that General Alexander?
Yeah. Yes.
So he was supposedly in charge, and it's hard to be in charge of Stillwell. So a rocky romance between three geopolitical dynasties.
And I went to the history books. I put a reference list in that book, which I had to do. And I also did in my first Viper's Tail book. In the back, there's a reference.
Yeah, you did.
But I read about 8 or 10 of the seminal books about Stillwell and the American forces in Burma in World War II. And a lot of things struck me, but the sort of epic tale was, as they were being defeated, overwhelmed by the Japanese, the other generals were flown out to India and saved. You know, the British generals, whatever, the top Chinese generals went back to China. Stillwell refused to leave the troops behind. He said, we're walking out of here together. So it was really epic Stillwell and an epic march. He refused to be treated differently than the troops. He said, the troops are walking out, and I'm walking out with them, I'm leading them, which, you know, he was one hell of a gritty infantryman. And, you know, I respected that ever since I'd read that story. So when I was asked for, you know, a
person,
an e-book, something I would like to write about, I said, yeah, I'm going to write about Stillwell. I still didn't have it completely formed, but, you know, as most writers, you start getting into it and it shapes itself.
So when he walked out, was he walking out victorious?
Oh, no.
Right.
As he would put it, well, I don't want to be too graphic, but he would put it that they were dragging themselves out,
right?
You know, with their
and where and how? I mean, so the other generals got flown out, but their troops didn't. So they were scrumming out somehow over walls and through jungles, and were they all unified, or were they all heading in?
There's a split. If you look at the maps of Burma, the rivers split it. There's a mountain range that comes down from the north through central Burma. And the Chinese troops, led by Stillwell, were on the half of it, which would be the east half, closer to China. And the British troops were on the west half, closer to India. And what happened is that Stillwell had been working with the British, nominally under their control, but as things began to fall apart, he had to make a choice, and what he decided was not to go out with the Chinese, who were headed, you know, back in that direction, but that his command was supposed to be allied with the British, so he would follow that path, northwestern Burma, starting above Mandalay, if people know their maps of Burma. It's fairly high up, and just go through the jungle trails and find their way back to the Indian border.
Wow.
Impal is the name of the city they were heading for.
It's funny, we had a gentleman on the show a couple of months back, Matt Benfield, who rode his motorcycle from Delhi to Yangon.
That's a hell of a ride.
3,000 kilometers, but I think he maybe crossed at that town you're talking about.
Yeah, he would have gone through Impal up in the north and then down. Yeah,
I'll have to check that. But okay, so and they don't come over the border as a unified or ununified, leaving military body to garlands and wreaths and the ticker tape parade.
Oh no! They were stragglers. Now Stillwell organized a group of his men, but as he went along, he found there were more and more British colonels and other groups who were tagging along with his group because the presumption was he knew where he was going, which he did. There was a lot of groups that didn't go along with him that the Japanese caught up with and executed.
Yeah, so not a rosy picture of history, not that any of this was, but and he persevered to at least get himself and a crew of people over the border and sent home.
No, nobody goes home. Nobody goes home. This is World War II. It's fight for survival, and they were up in northern India. What Stillwell did, which really irritated the British, he had a press conference right after he got out. And he told the world press, we just got our ass kicked. And our mission now is to reorganize and go back and kick the Japs out of Burma.
Ouch.
And the British didn't like that. The we just got our ass kicked part.
Yeah. With any negative characterization of the loss. And so did he do that?
Oh, he did. Yeah, he fought hard, was reinstated with the Chinese troops, but he was also given a detachment of American troops, a tank unit, and they fought, again, divided. Stillwell and his troops had a path down, and the British were on the other side, but Stillwell was in his own command with the Chinese, and they did a tremendous job driving down central Burma, beating the Japanese, and that's where Merrill's Marauders comes in. It's not in the defeat part, which is Stillwell's trail out of China, but it's in the Merrill's Marauders part where they came back.
So Merrill's Marauders then, by the piece, what is it, Historian magazine? You had a
World War II History magazine.
Yeah, I'm
it's
sorry.
a quarterly magazine.
Yeah, I apologize for mixing that
No
up.
problem.
My recollection is if Stillwell is 42-ish or 43, then the Marauders come after the regrouping. And is it in 44?
It's in
44. Right,
the Marauders made it to India. Well, they were recruited from the U.S. They were recruited from Puerto Rico, the Caribbean troops, and then they recruited troops who were volunteers out in the Pacific. So they ended up with 2,000 troops, 3 separate battle battalions.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and it was an interesting group. People actually volunteered for it, even people who'd been in combat in the Pacific. And so they were organized, went to northern India to be trained with the Chindits, which was what the British irregular group was called, who had been there in 43, and they had the experience. And then they were assigned in 43 that Stillwell was back. He was getting to go and, lead the advance for the American and Chinese troops against the Japanese. And this unit was assigned to him to be an irregular force, not fighting in the front, but going around the sides, constantly looping around and attacking the Japanese from the rear.
So is Matt Chance a Merrill's Marauder? Or is he a Tom Crowley?
Oh, that's a good question. I would have been proud to be a Merrill's Marauder.
Yeah, right. So
And I think at that time, Matt would have been involved, and he would have been a good soldier. The sad thing is, of course, is Merrill's Marauders were decimated.
Right. And as was Matt in one story, and as was Tom in another story.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Father Joe and I were talking about this morning, as he was talking about sort of growing up in North Dakota, just as opposed to Wisconsin, because I'd thought his childhood was in Wisconsin, and how the little girl Brown Rice sort of evoked some of the memory of childhood, and he thought about comparative hardship. It's interesting how this, I'm sort of hearing this here with this, go back in. We just talked about that in the section you're going to read from us today is go back in, Tom. It's you did it through some choice. I'm sure you could have said, boy, I don't have my balance back and my eardrum is wonky and, don't send me back. But you went back out of a sense of duty or whatever. Still went back in. Let me re-lead the same effort that failed horrendously last time.
Well, yeah, I don't want to make a big thing about it. I think a lot of small level leaders, I'd been wounded. I was in Japan, and I wanted to get back to Vietnam. I wanted to get back to my unit. I wanted to get back to my guys. But any small unit leader, as we call it, platoon, company, whatever, worth his salt would feel the same way, and many, many did.
Right. So fair enough. So let's say you're qualified nobility here. So Stillwell, would he have been, if he was in contention to lead the African invasion? Was that Patton? Was that an equivalent to Patton, or
Patton was only a major general at that time? I believe so. If the historian hears me, write me and bawl me out.
Yes. My bad question.
I'm trying to remember who was in charge.
So maybe rather than find out who that was, I mean, he was a person of consequence in the U.S. military, stepping up for a duty that is, in retrospect, lame brain. Right?
Yeah, it was a lousy job. And he didn't want it. But Roosevelt
So
personally said, I want you to do this.
Were they friendly?
No.
So you're the guy, I've been told you're doing this.
Stillwell's response was grumpy. He said, I go where I'm ordered.
Right.
That's supposed to be the exact quote.
Okay.
I go where I'm ordered. He wasn't happy. It was a minor theater compared to
Africa or Europe.
North Africa or Europe, yeah.
And so did he come back with political aspiration to run against Ike or, whatever is going on?
Oh, no.
So he came back, and how did he do in the rest of history?
Well, it's a bit of a tragic story, but he, Stillwell came back, and he was famous in the U.S. Army in the 1940 War Games because he had what was called the defensive unit, and there was an offensive unit, and it was just a game, in 1940, but very significant because the war was on the horizon. And his troops were not supposed to win. They were defensive.
Right.
And he changed the whole game, turned it on his head because he attacked. And he went around the other troop and attacked, and he won the war game. So he had a very good reputation in the military from that. And that's what he did with the Japanese when he came in northern Burma. He had his Chinese troops, and he had them under his command attacking straight down. But he said the Merrill's Marauders around the side and around the side. And so it was a brilliant campaign. The British hated them. Myitkyina was where the Merrill's Marauders had their final battle. Actually, they'd been promised 60 days, and they were 4 months in battle, 5 months in battle, and they were very angry about it. But Stillwell kept using them.
Oh, go do an end run, 60 days, then you cut your ticket.
No, okay. Do another one and do another one and do another one.
That sounds like your guy saying, hey, sure, Tom, you can be in the airborne troop.
Yeah, exactly.
You show up and it's, wait,
So it was, of course, generals, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, generals have to be bastards.
Yeah, okay.
And Stillwell was a bastard. He was a hard man in terms of executing the fight. The Merrill's Marauders paid for it, but they were miraculously successful and heroic group. And then they died on the reefs of Myitkyina in the spring of 44, June of 44. But Stillwell had not told the British that he was going to make that attack. And when they were successful, he announced it. And supposedly in the history books, Churchill asked the head British generals, why did the Americans do that and not you?
Right.
So, sorry, I could go on about
no,
history.
I mean, that's a good way to tie that up. But, I wanted to see how this nonfiction character fits into the fiction dogma of Tom Crowley, and he fits quite well.
I think so.
Yeah, not the thankless task, but a hard task that's followed up by the thankless task. I go repeat this, and then he comes up with his James Kirk end run against the system, as in, the Star Trek legend is how did Kirk get the Enterprise. He does a trick. He comes up with a maneuver, right?
Yeah.
And some people hate it, and some people admire it, but it gets him the recognition.
Yeah.
And heaven forbid he gets that recognition. So I'll do my job. Goes back in.
Yeah.
And just a thankless onslaught for years.
Yeah, and that's the military life in combat.
Yeah, right. To a T. Let me just sort of summon it all up there. Well, I mean, that fits, and it goes through the Mercy's heroes, and you just said the slumlords. So, I mean, it's thematically tight and in line with.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'll accept that, but you do the job that's in front of you.
Yeah.
And of course, at different points in life, as you know, you look for different jobs. Let me be creative. Let me reach out.
Well, and look at you. So I mean, you know, it's you talk about it a little bit in the beginning of Bangkok Pool Blues, and we talked about it before. But the economic downturn of '98, you closed your office, led to another opportunity for you here, and so time and time again, you're reborn, and even you know, leaving the board position that you have, which doesn't mean leaving helping. It just means handing over some of that control to write more, or to round out your day a little better.
Yeah.
You know, is you did your duty.
Yeah. Yeah. Writing is, as you know, I'm sure, is it's the full deck in the sense that on the one hand, it's terribly hard work.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you just love writing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that you're looking for anybody to applaud you. What you're looking at the end of the day is to be able to say to yourself, or to have someone else say to you, that's a good story.
Yeah.
And then you've made it.
Well, and I think, you know, look at you and me. I got a bigger binder than you, but I you know, I look at not your notes, but I look at the nature of your notes and the note taking. I just said I have a bigger binder than you. I hope you don't write that down. But the joy of when all of those notes come together, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when you know, how many of the modern day fiction stories are these? Boy, I watched one on Netflix during COVID, the Queen's Gambit. How she'd see the chess moves on the ceiling because she took enough amphetamines.
Yeah.
You know, but when you see your notebook connect, right?
Yeah.
Oh, where's that thing? Oh, yeah, here, it fits here, and you have it. And you said something to me last time about, you know, if I'm around long enough to write the next Nat Chance, and I got saddened by that. I thought, I don't like hearing that. I hope Tom remains motivated, and now here you are, and so you're right, backing it. You have a new frame of mind, maybe, or the same frame of mind. You're just going to push forward. But there is this when the light goes back on, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know, Frank. I don't know if you see this. Did you listen to the new Billy Joel song? I sent you that. Did you see that? It's the first pop song in 20 years. I sent it, and we have a group.
Yeah,
chat.
that's amazing. I saw the same thing. Billy Joel.
Right.
What?
Did you listen to the song?
No.
You
just
got to
saw
listen to
news.
the words, because it's his first pop song in forever, and it's turning the lights back on. And I thought, oh, I love it when he does a narrative, like when he writes about his character, Brenda and Eddie, at the scenes from the Italian restaurant, you know, Miami 2017. He did it again. A great song. It just says the right words in the right order and the right theme. And it's just, I was like, oh, God, good for him. And I didn't see him play it on whatever awards ceremony was last week. I saw that there was live footage, but, you know, you got the notebook out. You know, you're doing your old tricks, right?
Well, it's interesting what you hit on, which is, this is very pretentious for me to say it.
No, not at all.
Anybody listening, forgive me.
It's not.
But actually, the flame was lit sometime in October, November of this past year. And things came together in my mind. And I told my wife, you know, she has no idea what the muse is. But I said, the muse is back.
Right.
You know, we're going to do this. And she was so happy because apparently I'm a nicer person when I'm writing. Yeah, all of a sudden things come together and you say, hey, there's a story here. Get to work and pull it together. And it's wonderful. You're a very creative person. It's wonderful for someone like me to be creative in my own small way. You know, and you know, you're feel like you're expanding yourself. You're adding value, and then people like this lady from Mercy's Heroes. She got in touch with me. She said, "Thank you for writing that book."
Right.
I said, "Thank you." You know, people thank me for writing a book. You know.
You know, I get it, and you're being humble, and it's not what you think it is. It's yeah. Look, you've got good stuff out, and people acknowledge it as such. But it's. I left the podcast feeling a little down last time that you were thinking of stopping. I'll say that, and now the light's back on, and I sensed that from when you wrote it, and you didn't write. you wrote the email to me for me, saying, "Hey, I'm coming back." But the idea in it wasn't the lights back on, Joe. Aren't you happy for me? I was like, wait, the lights back on. I mean, I saw it and I thought, this is awesome. And so I'm glad the light's back on.
No, thanks.
And I'm glad you got the book out. These are all indications of a man in full, right? You're going here. It's mission time.
Yeah, I'm a lucky guy. I've always been a lucky guy, but yeah, I'm very happy about it. I was searching. I was busy in other things, but it finally came through, and now all I've got to do is the hard work.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. So I feel fortunate. You sent me a chapter, and I immediately erased. After I read it, I immediately erased it, and there's no trace of it.
Oh, no.
but yeah, I mean, it's interesting now. So I'm looking forward to having this come out whenever it does, even if it's a long time. But it's good to see the light is on again, or that it didn't go out. And that sounded ridiculous what I'm saying, but I'm happy, and I've been happy to be not a part of this, but that you're sharing the ride a little bit so I can see it. Which brings me back to Bangkok Pool Blues. I got to read this after you left, like I said, and I'll show it. And we talked today. Did you say you got a round in this week? Did you shoot?
Shooting pool, yeah.
Okay.
I was shooting pool on Saturday at Hustlers, and I got my rear end kicked. It's
you were jet lagged.
A lot of excuses.
There we go.
No, I enjoy. I love shooting pool. It's an addiction, and I'll stick with it.
So what is the? I'm gonna go to here, and I'm gonna go to the back, and this is a hard book to get, so y'all can look on and envy. Hustlers was not. What did we just conclude was the one that closed right next to the Sheraton?
Is it Jim's or the Player?
Players.
Yeah.
Here it is. Yeah. So yeah, here it is. Players is located on a small subsoy midway between Sukhumvit Soy 12 and Soy 14, next to BTS Asok. So I was gonna call you when I saw that going down, but I thought no need to throw salt on a wound. Yeah. You could have had your biggest victory in there. I don't know, but I remember you saying it was a player's place.
Yeah, but that's the great thing about fiction.
Yeah.
Players is going to live on.
Right.
I'm going to make believe nothing happened.
That there's not a condo.
It's up to me. It's my world. I create it. That's the wonderful thing about fiction.
Yeah, the solarium 40-story tower is there or something, right? Well, hold on, the rest of you. There's the Sportsman. So Frank and I used to play at the Live Lounge in the Sportsman there. That's up and running. They even have more tables. So
I like the Sportsman.
I didn't realize that was in Washington Square right here. It moved. So you
have
have the old address. Yeah, so that's on Soy 15 now.
Okay.
Second story.
Yeah.
Many tables in it.
Okay, Soy 15, down at the end, it's owned by a British guy.
I believe so, because
they have upstairs, downstairs.
Yes.
Downstairs restaurant serves food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a lot of tournaments there. I love it. It's a very nice setting.
So this was the old location.
Yeah.
I mean, big,
yeah,
right?
that was the old big. Yeah, it's very big.
Yeah.
I list it as the second best pool hall in Bangkok when people ask me, because pool players around the world are setting out messages. I'm on my way to Bangkok. Where should I play pool?
What's the one, help me, that you could see from an elevated platform, possibly the Nana train or the Asok train, and you could see into that you said was the best? Was that in the Matt Chance novel, or was that in here?
Oh, I'm trying to think now.
Visible from may have been the line. I'm asking you to recall a very small premise. Okay, well, so interesting. So in this, I wanted to ask if you could read from this later, not right now, but did the has the pool energy also returned and resurfaced?
I've never stopped playing pool. I'm addicted to it. I had some health problems, which I worked through, and the problem is as you go along, you slow down.
Right.
But no, I'm playing at least every week.
Where's your game in the U.S.? I mean, near your...
Well, this is heartbreaking to have to say, but I live in Kensington, Maryland, which is part of Montgomery County, which is a very nice county just outside of Washington, D.C., and they have a senior center.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's terrible that I am allowed in a senior center, but they have 6 tables.
Nice.
And I went down there being very cocky, thinking, hey, I'm going to show these old guys how to play pool.
On their tables.
Yeah, and what I found out is these old guys are just like me. They've been shooting pool all their life. And so the competition is pretty good down there. None of us are running around the tables, but these old guys have a good experience, a good background, and they shoot good games, so I'm enjoying it.
Any veterans in there that...
No, that's the interesting thing. I've looked around. There's veterans from the Korean War.
Okay.
And
that's making them about 90 then, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
There's a 92-year-old guy I shoot pool with.
Yeah.
And he's still good. He's amazing. Very slow around the table, but yeah.
Right. But the front end of assisted care for Vietnam there should be folks, right?
Yeah, there should be, but
just not
I'm not there. I'm not aware. Maybe they all ended up too poor to live in Montgomery County. I don't know.
Or too wealthy.
Yeah. One would like to think
Maybe
that.
they're in Nantucket, right? I don't know, at the Nantucket retirement home.
Yeah. I've got buddies who are Vietnam veterans who are in the pool world that I know.
In Maryland?
No, not in Maryland. I've got a friend in Washington State and some others. They all have stories.
Are there VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFWs?
I belong to the VFW.
Are there players who shoot in the VFWs around there?
Again, it's not a lot of them. It surprises me. The lady who's the bartender at the VFW I go for, which we're just, I don't see her down there that much, but she's in her 40s, 45 or so, and she shoots 5 days a week.
Nice.
Yeah, she's good. She showed me her new pool cues, $1,500 each, and...
Boy, I need to... Frank and I will take a picture of my cue, but I don't know if I told you this, and I don't think I told you in the last podcast. In Racine, Wisconsin on State Street, when I was growing up, there was a gentleman named Doug. I think his name was Sylvester Holt. I think it's the same name as the fellow on CNN, so I'm probably wrong. And he had a pool hall, and the phone book in the room when I went in the first time, and I'm assuming I was over 18, so was from 1964, and there was a picture of John F. Kennedy on the wall as president, and there was a phone book that had my father's and mother's 1963 phone number in it. And it just, that snapshot sort of stood still in that place. It had Horlicks malted milk, and there was no alcohol, right? It had Cannonball Adderley Christmas songs on the 45 jukebox in the back. Yeah. And Doug, it was a nickel a game, or then a dime a game. It never got over a quarter game. And he'd rack all tables.
Okay.
Couldn't rack your own ball, so Doug would go up and down there 4 or 5 tables, I forget. And I went in enough, and whatever else happened, and I got a present from him, which was a pool cue that I dragged around the world with me from that age forward, and used it when I could. But and I think Frank saw it in my music studio at the house when I moved here, and I said, "Hey, you can use this. This is a present from a friend." And I was gonna get a cue evaluation from you today, but I forgot, so I'm gonna have to take a picture. But I wanted you to see this because it was nostalgic in a way that this book makes me nostalgic. Sort of the way you broke down the community, the compare and contrast of the community, the learnings, the differentiators, the brief history going back to Louis XVI, just sort of the way you inserted that was very much like that anecdote we talked about in Matt Chance with the Japanese sort of historical entries that you had. I thought there's a lot of, I can see early Tom here and how it's going to inform his later books. And it was just very cool. And so this is a great book. It's going to be harder for folks to find, but I was hoping you could read from this. So do you mind if...
Let me just say here and now, the first 10 people that come to me, I'll mail them a free copy.
Oh, this is a free offer. So we're going to have the honor system. If they're all in Outer Mongolia, you're going to pay the...
I'll pay the fare. Because...
And it can't be Frank because he heard it first. So Frank can read my copy.
You want a free copy, you got it. I just... actually, I've got one with me, not at this moment.
No. Okay. Well, good. Well, that's cool. That'll be cool. But and if you do, look from... They can find you on Tom Crowley Books?
They'll find me on Tom Crowley Books, and I'll tell you a very short, but a quick story.
Oh, please, take your time.
The introduction on the Made page has an interview of me answering questions about...
I saw that.
Your new book, and asking me and going back and forth a lot of questions. And what I did... testing websites. I checked the traffic on my website, and it's not huge, but it's pretty steady, some good stuff. But I wanted to check, what do people read? How far do they go? You go all the way down. I don't think I removed that, but I think there's an offer of a free book. The last part of that...
For those who have the patience to read this, I have an offer of a free copy of one of my books in the contact section. Just write me by January 31, 2024. So that offer is expired. So you can't do it based on that, but you can do it based on the limited number, 10 books that he just did. So
I'd be happy.
I didn't read that far down because
Nobody does. That's the point.
I've read everything years all the way through, but, I stopped at this and I got a phone call and I thought, I wonder if Tom took that picture.
No, a friend of mine took it.
Okay. Because it's sort of ubiquitous with market, because everyone gets this view if they go to the market, and Frank and I'll cut and paste it, but it's an overhead shot of a market scenario that looks like Thai hats, or maybe Vietnamese, but Thai, there's a durian.
It's Thai. It's the, whatever they call that, the ocean market or whatever, as you're driving down towards Hua Hin.
Yeah.
I remember that city.
And look at your pull quote. I blame it on my librarian when I was a kid. She was a pusher and I got hooked. So this is the Matt Chance language. I didn't know reading led to writing. Honestly, I'm innocent. That's a great quote. Yeah. Yeah, this is a good website. I like it. I like the colors. I like the photos. I really like, I don't know what this is. I think it's a father link for me. I'm not going to fob that onto you, but there's a picture of you at the foot of a bridge that's a modern bridge, and the caption, you say, "Here I am with my friends."
Well, that's on my Facebook page.
Okay. And then it says this was actually just a wooden trellis or a wooden train track back when we had it, but here's where some colleagues of yours
a
were
group
lost.
of us went there. I think it was Easter week of 2013, 16 or 17.
Yeah.
And we were all had been wounded in combat in Vietnam, and we wanted to go see that site. Only one of us had actually been there during that fight, and I went. My ego, my living in Asia 35 years ego, wanted to burn some joss sticks and have the smoke go to heaven, and etc. And I went underneath the bridge, and I did that. And the guys were so happy. They were so impressed that I did that. And I just took it for granted. It was a small thing I wanted to do. But, that was a historic occasion for me. That was...
Yeah, I didn't remember seeing that before. I went through it because I got a new thing with big screen, and I was taking my time looking at the photos. So that was a good one. That was a touching photo. And I thought, boy, this is so just sort of... just here, it's part of this narrative, and it's just it's more than a placeholder for sure. And I looked at it, so I really like that one. But
maybe I'll take it off of my Facebook page and make a copy and put it on the website.
Yeah,
that's possible.
Yeah, I was surprised to have stumbled across it. So good. So before we go to the reading, was there anything else you wanted to cover today that I missed, or that you thought, or I promised that I was going to walk through, or?
No, I think we've been pretty complete. I think one thing, as I wanted to throw in a name, I talked about having somebody say you wrote a good book. We talked before. There's a fellow named Jerry Hopkins who wrote the first and best biography of Elvis Presley. And he lived here. He died about 7 or 8 years ago. He wrote for the Rolling Stone magazine in the 70s and 80s. And Jerry was here, and I wrote Bangkok Pool Blues. And the first book, you're completely apprehensive about, is this good or is it just a pile of nonsense that, you shouldn't have wasted people's time with. And we had dinner after the book came out, and I never mentioned the book. We didn't talk about it. There were a couple of people with us. And after the dinner at a Thai restaurant, and so I ate, we were walking down in the shade of the trees quietly, and Jerry was walking next to me. And all he said was, "Good book, Tom." And I was so pumped up, have a guy who wrote the biography of Elvis, a Rolling Stone reporter. Good book, Tom.
Well, okay. Let's take out Tom and the librarian from your life, and you might not be a writer, right? I mean,
Jerry, you mean?
Yeah, right. It's just, it doesn't take many, right?
I mean...
take Father Joe out of some of these kids' lives, and lives are different.
That's the point.
Right.
Like the dancing today, these kids had something special they're taking away, and kids need that. They need something to build around. You have abilities. You are special. Work it, kid.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, that's a good one. I like that. So I'm glad Jerry pushed you along too, because I got to read 7 going on 8 excellent books from you. But let's do this. I'm gonna hand you this book, and we're in chapter 6, The Foreign Legion of Bangkok Pool Blues by Tom Crowley, and I marked off what would be 3 normal paragraph sort of size. It's starting in the U.S.
Okay.
So if you don't see in the U.S., you have the wrong check mark. And I'm sorry I put a check mark in the book you gave me, but that's how I treat my books.
No, that's fine. In the U.S., as a direct result of our frequent wars, there is much reference to what is called post-traumatic stress syndrome of the combat veterans. I came away from my service in Vietnam with an intimate understanding of the phenomenon of post-traumatic stress, having first-hand experience with this phenomenon from my efforts to get back on my feet emotionally after my Vietnam time. I'm sympathetic with those former soldiers who have experienced the worst and are struggling to get back on an even keel. At the same time, there is an urge at some point to say to oneself and others, okay, it's been a bad trip, just deal with it. Although, of course, it's never that simple. When I learned of Norm's experiences and military background on the streets in Ulster and other areas of Northern Ireland, night and day patrols, shooting and getting shot at, good friends dying, I was sympathetic to his emotional unrest and angry outlook on life. Of course, I was never too keen on shooting a game of pool with him. To me, Norm is a living proof that shooting pool in Bangkok is a therapeutic experience. With the passing of time, he has become a much mellower person. Of course, he is still loud and continues to comment during the course of his game, especially if he is not doing well. But nowadays, he might be better labeled as querulous Norm rather than nasty Norm. He now tends to complain and grumble to the person he is playing against without any visible rancor or ill will, and his habit of getting so upset that he storms off into the night seems to be a bygone habit. As he has calmed down, so his game has improved, and I would rate him now as a good mid-level player. But more importantly, it is the change in his character that impresses me.
I think, I'm not going to, I guess if people word search that, it would come up somewhere, I'm sure. But I thought that was like a vintage Tom Crowley section, whether it's early or late in your writing, because it just ties together what I think are the themes of your life, which I think are the themes of your writing. You know, I mean, I can't separate them now that I've got to know you or you know, sort of be lucky enough to spend time with you. And I thought that was a great section. And so it's later in the book, and I wasn't ready for it because I thought we were going to just be going through the expats that you played ball against, right? And the funny narratives and some funny stories and some good stories, and obviously guys and women who left impressions on you enough so that you write a book. But this being an earlier one, I'm sure some made it in and some didn't. But I thought that was a great excerpt, right? And it just it touches all of the bases. And I think what I'm seeing in the first chapters of the continuation of the Matt Chance thrillers are doing the same, and even at a more profound level. So maybe this is a good spot to end it, because I'm really looking forward to the next chapter.
Oh, God bless you. Yeah. I believe in writing to cure people's problems. And I've been exploring in the U.S. With various veterans groups about coming down and leading writing sessions with the younger veterans, the Iraq, the Afghanistan guys who are meeting and being counseled. And I don't know how to counsel people, but if they want me to help them start their book, I'm happy to do that.
Well, it's so interesting because I'm interacting closely with two vets here who are finding their way, and it's from latter encounters, not from your era. And so it's the more things change, right? The more things stay the same. So God, you know, good for you for doing the work and keeping an eye out. But it's an endless process, and so we get in. But it's been great seeing you. I'm glad you're in Bangkok, and I'm looking forward to our next podcast. Will you come back? If you're in town, will you come back and do a third one with us?
Oh, no, definitely. Anybody who says nice thing about my books is a great person, you know. And,
all right. Well, there's a clue on how to get rid of future guests. It's come down hard on their works of art. But ladies and gentlemen, Tom Crowley, appreciate you being here today.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
1, 2, 3, quiet.